Hello, my name is Melissa Welsh. Today is March 13, 2014. This is Integrative Seminar 2, Ohio Christian University. My presentation is on post-traumatic stress disorder in adults who were exposed to abuse and/or neglect during childhood. For the remainder of this presentation, I will be referring to post-traumatic stress disorder as PTSD. PTSD has made headlines due to United States soldiers fighting in the war for our freedom. These brave men and women endure what most of us will never see. PTSD does not only affect them, it affects other victims as well, and this is our young. In this presentation, we will define what PTSD means, the need for counselors to have an understanding of PTSD, the risk factors associated with PTSD, what child abuse and neglect stands for, the effects of childhood abuse and/or neglect, the effects on abuse of children into their adulthood, and how these PTSD folks can overcome their abuse and/or neglect. It is the responsibility of the counselor to help the needs of the patient, help the clients to process their experiences, also have the knowledge of the disorder in order to help the client that has come to them. PTSD has two criteria in the DSM-4. The first criteria is the person experienced, witnessed, or was confronted with an event or events that involved actual or threatened death or serious injury or threat to physical integrity of self or others. The second criteria is the person's response involves intense fear, helplessness, or horror. Note, in children this may be expressed instead by disorganized or agitated behavior. PTSD does not discriminate. This affects men, women, and children. The first question we must ask, are adults who have suffered childhood abuse and/or neglect more or less likely to suffer from PTSD? Abuse can be defined as any type of physical harm that makes for a person not feel secure around others whom they personally know, someone they don't know, or someone they do know. When a child is being abused and/or neglected, then a person that child has trusted, no matter the relationship, the child does not feel safe and secure. I have been employed with Franklin County Children's Services for 16 years. I have seen the pain and frustration on the faces of many children. These effects have affected me personally and the entire family. We must remember that some children are not verbal and cannot tell us what has happened to them. It is our job and my job with Children's Services to make sure that these children are protected. I have seen PTSD in not only the children that I serve, but the parents that I serve as well. This is due to their generational parental issues of being abused. According to Franklin County Children's Services, child abuse and neglect often occurs in families under stress, in the middle of crisis, or at the end of their rope. Children who were abused and/or neglected at the hands of a parent or a loved one will be more likely to offend another person as well as become a victim of PTSD. Childhood abuse has been associated with a plethora of symptoms. These are not only emotional symptoms, but eating disorders, pain, fibromyalgia. Can adults who have suffered childhood abuse and neglect overcome their past and their PTSD? Yes, if they know to what degree of the perceived threat, the development state of the child, the relationship of the victim to the perpetrator, the level of support of the victim has in his day-to-day life, and the child's short-term response to abuse. Are adults who have suffered childhood abuse and neglect able to pass down their PTSD to their own children? Yes. Anxiety is an emotional disorder. PTSD can be passed down. When a child feels the anxiousness of their parent, that child becomes anxious as well. The PTSD survivor is consumed by the incident and not able to control their emotions. Can adults who have suffered abuse and or neglect as a child be able to function as a normal adult? Yes. They must seek treatment right away, and they do not forget what has happened to them, and nor is it asked for them to forget or to forgive, but it is their job to find closure, to subdue their feelings. Can adults who have suffered abuse and or neglect as a child be able to realize that this was not their fault? Yes. They must quit saying, "Why me? What did I do wrong?" They must get over their shame and guilt and realize they have no control over what occurred to them, and they cannot change what happened. They are victims. Can adults who suffered abuse and or neglect during their childhood be able to seek the help they need to overcome their PTSD? Yes. They need to realize they are not alone. They are capable of healing, but they must do the work. They are capable of thriving beyond their healing. They must have the knowledge of the abuse, which translates to power. Once they have that power in their hand, they have the knowledge for good. They must stop the cycle. They must get help from their family, friends, and or a counselor. And in most cases, they must seek a higher power. Can adults who suffered from abuse and or neglect during their childhood be able to work through their issues in order to keep it out of their interpersonal and family relationships? Yes. If they go to family therapy, work on cognitive behavioral therapy, group therapy, medication, and learn to end the cycle of abuse. Cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT, allows the patient and the client to remove the biases within them. They modify their assumptions and they maintain their maladaptive behaviors and emotions. They learn to take control of their emotions and control of their well-being. If a client chooses group therapy, this group will allow them to know that they are not alone. They work together for the nature of their problems. They discover other resources from each other. They discover their strengths as a group. They discover that they can cope, and they will get skills for their help. In some cases, therapy does not help on its own, and a client must be medicated. This is okay. Do not feel that you cannot ask for help. If you need medication, your psychiatrist will put you on antidepressants for depression, anxiety. This will help with pressures. You must take the medication along with counseling in order to be completely healed. Are adults who were exposed to childhood abuse and or neglect as child more or less likely to suffer from PTSD? The answer is yes. A person cannot forget what happened. They must seek help, move forward, gain the skills and knowledge that they need for their health. This counselor who works with these people must be patient. These people need to learn self-esteem and empowerment and ways to control the pain that has been endured upon them. Let's keep calm and graduate. I'm Melissa Welsh. Thank you for listening to my presentation on post-traumatic stress disorder in adults who've experienced childhood abuse and neglect.